Let's take it to the meme territory. We got this story from the Washington Post. Quote, "We are closer to civil war than any of us would like to believe," new study says. This is from Barbara F. Walter, University of California at San Diego, serves on a CIA advisory panel called the Political Instability Task Force that monitors countries around the world and predicts which of them are most at risk of deteriorating into violence. By law, the task force can't assess what's happening within the United States, but Walter, a longtime friend who has spent her career studying the conflicts in Syria, Lebanon, Northern Ireland, Sri Lanka, the Philippines, Rwanda, Angola, Nicaragua, and elsewhere, applied the predictive techniques herself to this country. Her bottom line is that we are closer to civil war than any of us would like to believe. She lays out the argument in detail in her new book. Now, I'll pause here. Could she just be trying to sell a book? She's an expert on civil war. She wants people to read about her area of expertise. She sees conflict in this country and then tells everybody, and then they eat it up. Or, let me read this. They're going to say, indeed, the U.S. has already gone through what the CIA identifies as the first two phases of insurgency, the pre-insurgency and incipient conflict phases. And only time will tell whether the final phase, open insurgency, began with the sacking of the Capitol by Donald Trump supporters on January 6th. I would like to interject, good friends at the Washington Post. Let me just add a sentence. And only time will tell whether the final phase, open insurgency, began with the sacking of cities across the country by Black Lives Matter and Antifa following the George Floyd incident.
Ooh.
You see, they totally skip over that and act like we didn't deal with 100+ days of violent riots and dozens dead. However, this is the point I want to get to. Is this woman, who is a CIA advisor, who tells them when other countries are going to break down in a civil war, is she just selling a book? Or is this legit?
That's a very good question, because you could be absolutely right. It could be sensationalistic. It could be hyperbolic. But there are signs that do prove some merit in her conversation. Now, the comment that I would add to this, if there is one government secretive agency that knows about civil war, it's the one that has been spreading civil wars all around the world. And that, of course, is the CIA, which they have been doing all over Latin America, all over the Asian countries, all over the Middle East. So I mean, obviously, she comes from a perspective where she also has information where she's privy to that we don't know anything about. So when you look at the information that she's able to declassify, the databases she's able to go into, she might be seeing something that we're not allowed to know, that could be still classified, that does show this kind of bigger partisanship, this kind of bigger conflict brewing, because we've been talking about it for a very long time. And the conditions that create this kind of partisanship, big tech, social media, and the corporate media, they work in tandem to divide people politically. Those two ingredients, that fuel for this fire isn't stopping. It's only getting more powerful. It's only becoming more readily available. And it's only becoming something that we can't avoid even more. So the conditions that create these civil war-like aspects, they're not going away. They're only becoming stronger.
And I'll throw it to the January 6th story we were just talking about.
Yep.
When you've got an overtly politicized government, body issuing subpoenas and going after with legal power and criminal charges against former members of the previous administration, I'm like, dude,
it's wild.
Man, I've been talking about this for a long time, and I'm not saying I know for sure exactly what will happen, but at a certain point, I really want to swear, and I'm going to do it. At a certain point, man, at a certain point, okay, I said it twice, all right, just so you know I'm serious.
Right after
it starts with me being like, hey, look, people are beating each other in the streets, and this ideology is this divide is getting worse. When you've got what happened with George Floyd protests, riots, several dozen dead, when you get January 6th, when you have a panel of establishment politicians using government power to file criminal charges against members of the previous administration, for the love of God, this country is being ripped apart, and it's at the highest possible levels. You throw away everything else. You throw away the January 6th. You throw away the riots. You pretend like none of that ever happened. And you come out and you say that there is a panel, members of Congress, who are issuing subpoenas against the previous executive branch's administration and trying to put them in prison, like Steve Bannon. Now they're saying they want criminal charges against Mark Meadows. They are literally trying to imprison the previous administration. And it was these same people who claimed Trump was the bad guy for saying, lock her up, in 2016. And it was funny. And he didn't do anything. The dude didn't even fire Fauci, but I will absolutely state Trump was definitely a part of this sundering in the United States. But I'm going to say it one more time. We don't need to talk about Antifa. We don't need to be talking about Proud Boys. We can just talk about members of Congress who are filing subpoenas against members of the administration and members of the media. You don't have to like Alex Jones. He is a media personality. Yep. And as much as people don't want to hear me say it, I'm going to say it. Alex Jones runs a news organization. Yeah. Now, you can hate him.
Which is protected under the First Amendment.
That's right. And now they're coming after him. They're filing subpoenas. And this is what Alex is arguing, that he's got a First Amendment right here to do what he does.
And he does.
But look at what is happening, man. They have lost the plot. I mean, you look at the stuff they're talking about with Joe Manchin. They're like, one man, who's the real president? Is it Joe Manchin or is it Joe Biden? Manchin's a senator from West Virginia. When was he going to be on your side? No, they demand fealty. Just because Joe Manchin is a Democrat, they demanded that he do whatever they want him to do. And when he doesn't, man, they're going absolutely insane against him, claiming that that Biden needs to slam the boot down. I'll tell you this, man. Every step of the way, we have seen dramatic escalations in what is leading to this country being ripped apart, and we are watching it right now. And then when a CIA advisor, professor lady comes out and she's like, yeah, it's happening. It's Trump's fault, by the way, but it's happening. I'll be like, it doesn't matter if she thinks it's Trump's fault. What matters is she thinks it's happening, because you got a bunch of people who now think it's happening.
Here's the other crazy thing, too. You said earlier, a grand jury was convened simply to indict Trump in New York City?
Yeah, that's right.
That's crazy because, so here's the thing about grand juries. Grand juries typically, like, they've been working together for, weeks or months on end, and they've seen and heard a bunch of cases. The fact that they're convening a grand jury solely for Donald Trump is crazy to me. That's wild, because that's not normal. That's out of protocol.
But let's call that political and a bit hyperbolic in a sense. I'm sure they'll tell you, well, the scope of our investigation is fraud into the Trump administration or something like that. But we got the story, man.
Yeah,
this has been news for the past couple months. That high profile, or I should say, like that individuals working within the Trump administration, including journalists, have been subpoenaed to testify in a grand jury to indict Donald Trump. And now it is being speculated he will be indicted, and if he's indicted, he will not be able to run in 2024.
Wow.
TheNation.com, which is a leftist publication, said Donald Trump will not be running for president in 2024, something to that effect. And the first paragraph is, Donald Trump will be indicted for fraud, and this will prevent him from running.
The witch hunt is real.
Fraud. Let me ask you. You have experience with grand juries, maybe a little bit?
Of course, yeah.
So how often do they return indictments?
That's why this is weird to me, because here's the thing. The federal court system, everyone is in it. So it would happen all the time. I'd go in a grand jury, I'd present my case, right? Some drug case, whatever it may be. And then there'd be an FBI agent come after me. He'd go and do bank robbery. Then there'd be a DA agent. He'd come in and do a drug case. Then there'd be an ATF agent come in and do somebody for felon in possession. So we all would use the same grand jury, which is weird to me, because that grand jury will hear hundreds of cases over the span of a few months. That's how grand jury works at the federal system. And then you come in, you testify, you tell the facts of your case. You're in there with your prosecutor. You step out. Your prosecutor comes out. True bill, bang, and then you get your arrest warrant.
This is state level, just to clarify.
Oh, it's state?
Yeah, New York State.
Yep. So the feds, so I'll tell you this, that's very interesting. So that tells me that the feds probably didn't want it, and it went to the state, because any AUSA would love to do a case like this, especially where in New York exactly is this?
I think this is southern. Southern.
So it's probably New York City. So it falls under Southern District of New York, which is a very aggressive prosecutorial office. It's actually one of the best in the country. The Southern District of New York. They've done all the big mafia cases. They do the big racketeering cases, etc. So they do big, sexy cases like this. So I'm surprised that the feds didn't take it. So that tells me they probably didn't want it, and the state said, you know what, we'll run with it.
In your experience, I know feds different from state, but what percentage do they what percentage of grand juries of like cases are returned as indictments?
Most. If you're going
95%.
Yeah, because by the time here's how tight the reason why the federal system doesn't lose is because by the time you take a case to an AUSA and you present it and you guys gather your evidence and you actually have enough to indict, that prosecutor's ready for trial, guys, at the federal system. They're ready for trial. That's why the feds rarely lose, because prosecutors don't take cases unless they know they're going to win. They don't want to go to trial. They want to win. So, and so if they don't take it, this tells me right now, it probably tried to go federal. They said, hell no, we're not going to win this thing. And the state say, you know what, we'll take it.
So I got to say,
very interesting.
Grand juries are not like full on trials, where it's difficult and it's non-adversarial.
None.
This means that the state walks into a bunch of people and says, here's what they're going for. They're claiming that Donald Trump inflated the value of his buildings to secure loans, which is fraud. something to that effect.
Okay.
So
And I just want to clarify, with the state system, I don't know how often the grand jury convenes, but I know at the federal level, they typically go for a few weeks to a few months.
My understanding is that grand juries almost always issue indictments because they're not looking
Yeah, they always do. Almost always.
Right, because they're looking for a preponderance of evidence. So that means someone from the state's going to walk up
cause.
Probable cause.
Because it's criminal. If it's if
I thought a grand jury just needs a little bit more than probable cause.
No, probable cause. To
return a criminal indictment?
Yes.
Wow.
Probable cause. So at the federal level, I mean, regardless, the United States is probable cause, right? You need probable cause to effect an arrest, right? But for an indictment or a criminal complaint, whatever charging document you want to use in information, it's always probable cause. But the fact that the state didn't take it, the feds didn't take it, is alarming to me because normally they would do something like this. So what probably happened is this. The feds are rarely going to charge a charge that the state is also going to charge. So, for example, if the feds wanted to do a fraud case, they would deconflict with the state, and then one of them would take it. So the fact that the feds don't have it and the state has it tells me probably went to the state, they did a grand jury, convened, and then they presented the case to the grand jury. The state system is a little bit different.
I just confirmed it. You're right. It's probable cause.
Yeah, it's probable cause, yeah.
Trump's getting indicted.
So
it's crazy.
This was
That
a
is
plan
crazy.
so that he can't run, basically,
Yeah.
on purpose.
That's the point.
That could be it.
Damn.
There's no way I would ever believe it otherwise. And there's so many people. I covered this, like last week, and I get these emails from salty, Democrats or whatever, anti-Trump people, and they're like, no, his crimes are finally catching up to him. And I'm like, if the dude's been this active everywhere for this long, you think they wouldn't have come after him for anything he was doing? They're coming after him because Trump. I guess the argument is he was obsessed with the net worth, the value of his properties, and so he inflated their value. Okay, well, are you going to explain to the grand jury that property values are nebulous? Like, if I were to ask you, like, your property values, how do you determine the property value?
An appraisal, but it changes with all the time.
And you can get a different appraiser and give you a different number?
For sure.
Exactly. Yeah. So they're coming after Trump basically because he was like, you got a building worth $500 million, and he goes, probably worth $550, because we did improvements on it. I'm going to get a loan. And they're like, that's fraud. It's like...
and it's commercial, too. So it has even more checks and balances. So I would love... You know what I want? I would love... If they actually do follow through and he gets charged and everything else like that, I would like to read either the indictment or the criminal complaint that was filed in support... Well, it was more than likely an indictment because it convened a grand jury, so it's probably going to be an indictment. It's not going to be a criminal complaint.
So let me just ask everybody who doubting the idea of a civil war, do you think if Donald Trump is indicted and can't run, that his supporters, that people on the right are going to be like...
I'll say this. It's because you mentioned some fantastic points earlier about all the things going on. Let's add to that the fact that inflation is here.
Mm-hmm.
40 to 50% of the U.S. currency in circulation right now was printed in the last 18 months.
Woo!
Let's talk about the financial side too.
Yeah.
Fiat currency nowadays is literally dwindling. Hyperinflation is going to rear its ugly head anytime now.
Bloomberg said, spend your paycheck as soon as you get it.
Yeah, like it's crazy. So you got the polarization between the two parties, right? Between the Democrats and the Republicans. You got this craziness that went down at Capitol Hill. You got the FBI over here going after dudes for misdemeanors. You know what I'm saying? To try to send a message. You got them trying to indict Trump by the state. Clearly the feds didn't want to take it out of the most aggressive federal prosecutorial office in the country, by the way. And this is insane. I wouldn't be. She's not crazy. This woman from the CIA is not crazy because there's a lot of things in play here.
Yeah.
Look, in 2017, I was like, man, if this kind of ideological, conflict escalates, it's going to reach the highest levels of government. And people have repeatedly said I was crazy. Now, most people, I think, who say that are typically on the left because they just don't. They're like, nah, the establishment's the best. It'll never happen. The security state. Now look where we are. Now look where we are. Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to watch live, you can check out this channel Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and if you want more unfiltered and uncensored content with all of these guests, go to timcast.com and become a member. All of these guests you know and love in exclusive segments on our website where we are unrestricted in what we talk about, so you'll definitely not want to miss it. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all next time.